This short video explores a simple thought experiment. What happens if we use the Jungian theory of archetypes to compare Superman with Batman, his main rival in terms of longevity and popularity, and what can the shadow archetype in particular teach us about these characters and their relationships? At first blush, the temptation to regard Superman and Batman in binary terms as archetypal opposites is irresistible. If Superman is a god who draws his power from the fires of the sun, then Batman is a spirit of the moonlit night. If Superman is a sovereign charged to protect the innocent and vulnerable, Batman is a hunter charged to track down and punish the guilty. If Superman is a country boy at heart, most at home under or up in the open sky, then Batman is a creature of the city, urban and urbane. If Superman is a warrior paladin, then Batman is a shaman or magician. If Superman is yang, then Batman is yin. And yes, I think that piece of advertising art may have been the only good thing that came out of the terrible movie it was trying to make you go to see. But an equally metaphorically rich and perhaps more accurate way to describe the relationship between Superman and Batman would be to say that Batman is Superman's shadow in that Jungian archetypal sense, a figure for the darkness that we all carry within. To think of Batman as Superman's shadow in this Jungian sense is to imply that both characters could at times function as symbols of dueling psychological forces or tendencies present within everyone. In this context, the numerous stories where Batman kicks Superman's ass might even be read as grim psychoanalytic allegories about the danger of placing too much faith in the disciplinary civilizing forces of the ego and forgetting the overwhelming power of the unconscious. This allegorical resonance may be one reason why so many creators enjoy imagining these two supposed super friends at odds, and may also explain why Batman seems to have a better success rate than Lex Luthor when it comes to taking Superman down. At some gut level, we recognize the compelling force of our instinctual drives, even if we prefer to think of our rational ego as being in control most of the time. To think of Batman and Superman as warring psychological forces gives images like these a new resonance, and can perhaps account for why they are so immediately striking. Here, for example, Superman is quite literally a controlling superego who must chain Batman's raging id. Thinking about Batman as a kind of Jungian shadow figure, then, has allowed me to construct an analysis wherein both Batman and Superman can be read as emblematic with regard to our individual psychological processes, two parts of one person, as this typically wacky Jimmy Olsen cover suggests. Now, leaving aside the possibility that these figures may represent aspects of a single psyche, but staying with the notion of Batman as an archetypal shadow figure, we can note further that Batman contains within himself the shadow aspects of all Superman's positive qualities. So, for example, we might describe Superman as impressive, righteous, determined, and awe-inspiring. But with Batman, the impressive shades into the intimidating, righteousness shades into self-righteousness, determination shades into obsession, and the awe-inspiring can become downright scary. Crucially, these gradations of value are not suggestive of simple oppositions, but more like points on a continuum, because sometimes it can be hard to say when a positive quality, such as determination, starts to slide into something more negative, such as obsession. Thus, while it is possible and even tempting to think of Batman and Superman in oppositional terms, if we see Batman as Superman's shadow, then we don't end up with a bunch of dichotomous categories like night and day or black and white. Instead, we find ourselves in a more confusing grey area. I think we can discern the outlines of a major epistemological dilemma here, one that we might even describe as shaping the human condition. Sometimes our virtues are our vices. If that seems too gnomic and elliptical, please allow me to explain further. It would be nice if the moral connotations and consequences of our behavior and actions were always obvious. That is to say, it would be nice if we could always believe of ourselves that we are good people, and that our good intentions generally manifest in positive outcomes. But things are almost never so clear. For example, who can say when an appropriately concerned parent has become an over-controlling one? At what point does strength of character cross the line into stubborn rigidity and arrogance? When does self-confidence become narcissistic self-regard? At what point does the legitimate exercise of authority become the abuse of power? I'm not saying that there's no difference between concern and control, or confidence and conceit, or right and wrong. Of course there is. The difference is all important. But while we would like these things always to be clear, separate, and distinct, they are all too often murky, overlapping, and frustratingly intertwined. Still, our need to maintain these distinctions and to put ourselves on the right side of them is very strong. So strong, in fact, that people who may never have taken a course in psychology are nevertheless familiar with the psychological concept of projection, that process whereby we repress or deny the negative aspects of our own personalities and behavior and project them onto others. And according to Jung, these acts of repression and projection are what creates the shadow and gives it power.